This video is for you if you have over $10,000 of unsecured debt, such as credit cards, personal loans, or other types of unsecured debts. It's not for you if you're in bankruptcy, you have judgments, or if you're unemployed or don't have any type of source of income to actually resolve the debts. My name is Eric Pemper, and I am the managing member of CuraDebt. And over the last 16 plus years, we've counseled over 180,000 people to help them resolve their debt issues and give them the peace of mind, help have them have a solution, and ultimately get that solution implemented so that they can have the financial success and situation that they most want, especially related to having unsecured debts and having payments that are just not going anywhere. So let's start out. We want to start out with what are the benefits of taking action? It's really important to take action as soon as possible, because if there is any type of issue related to either the accounts are going delinquent, or maybe you're on the minimum payment plan and the balances are just not going down, which is a phenomenal situation for the credit card companies because they make billions of dollars in interest per year. However, for you or for an individual consumer, it's not the best solution, because if one does the math, one could actually end up paying forever and still have that balance owed. So it's really important to take action now. Well, what happens if you don't take action? If you're going delinquent, then if you don't take action, then there's a lot of potential issues that can happen and you don't have protection. And it's like walking through a minefield. It becomes very, very dangerous and not a good situation to be in. It's also very stressful. Yet when you know exactly what to do, or you're guided by a professional, or you have a program in place, it's a night and day difference where you know exactly what the outcomes that are desired are, what to do, how to handle each thing, and ultimately you get the best results. If you're paying minimum payments right now, then you really need to ask yourself, can you pay back the debt? In other words, can you make significantly more than the minimum payment? Because if you're only paying the minimum payment and maybe some months going delinquent, some months accumulating fees, you get back on the minimum payments with the guise that, oh, my credit's going to be great. Well, the issue is that you could literally pay out 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times the value of the debt and still have it owed. And we see a lot of people who come to us and they say, gosh, if I just talked with you earlier and gotten some assistance, I could have been done with the program by now. And then they could have had, who knows, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 in their bank account in cash by just depositing the money that was going and being sent to the credit card companies. So it's really, really important to take action now. I know it's not something anybody likes to admit or to talk about, or it's not something we go out and say, oh, so how are you doing? Oh, I'm kind of stressed. I'm being called by the creditors, or I'm paying minimum payments. It's not going anywhere. I know it's not the hot topic of the month or the week or anything we really enjoy talking about. However, after being in this industry for so long and hearing so many different counseling sessions and then seeing the results, I can tell you right now that when it's taken care of, or even the first day when there's a solution in place, there's just an incredible lightness and positivity, and relationships become better. Everything becomes better in one's life. And that's ultimately, our mission is to have that kind of positive impact by means of helping people to take care of resolve their debt issues. So let's look at some of the solutions so that you can choose which one's ultimately going to be the best solution for you. The first one was do nothing, and I think we addressed that about the urgency of actually taking action, that unless you're able to pay it all back or really quickly pay off everything, then doing nothing is really only going to make matters worse, either with repercussions that one's not prepared to deal with in the collection activity realm, or just paying minimum payments if one's doing nothing except paying minimum payments, then ultimately it's not a good situation for you, because you're ending up paying and paying and paying, whereas you only use the item maybe once or a couple of times. In other words, the item was maybe worth $10. Why do you need to pay $1,000 for something that was $10? Let's get that resolved so you get that debt taken care of. What I've talked about in terms of paying more than the monthly payment, that's basically the method that's called a snowball method. So if you have a variety of different credit cards. And let's say that the minimum payment is $200, meaning that if you pay $200, you can literally be paying that for the rest of your life. That's not, you need to take action if you're in that situation. However, let's say that your budget allows you to pay $1,000 per month. Okay, well great, and you have maybe 5 different credit cards. One of them is at 28%, another one's at 17, another one's at 5%. Well, you're gonna put the excess money toward the account that is the highest interest rate. You'll pay it off, and then you'll continue paying more to the next highest and the next highest and the next highest, and then you'll be able to, in relatively the fastest amount of time possible, resolve your accounts and get them back to balance zero and have yourself be back in control and not be paying high interest rates to the credit card companies. So if you can do that, it's great. Most people, however, can't. Another is bankruptcy, and that's definitely an option. It's available to people. However, well, I can't give you legal advice. I can say that most of the people who we counsel, they want to avoid that for a lot of reasons. For a personal reason, they don't want to be asked for the rest of their life, have you ever filed bankruptcy? Some of them maybe want to start a small business or work in certain types of careers or occupations where that's a question that comes up on the application to participate. Other people they understand and they've been brought up with the concept of if you agree to something, then you either pay it back in full or you reach an agreed to resolution, which both parties say is fine, in order to resolve those debts. So the people that we speak with, they really are not looking to go that route, generally speaking, for a lot of the different reasons. Another reason is that some individuals, because they have some assets, they really would be in a situation where the court is maximizing what the creditors get, and basically a court-managed payment or payback plan instead of where they're really in control of the situation, and they don't really want to go in that direction. So while it is an option, if it is something you're considering, definitely get some information from a person who can give you legal advice, an attorney. At the same time, you should really do some research. You can Google online about stories of people after they filed bankruptcy and what they say had they wished they hadn't filed. That's generally what I find for most people, that they wish they hadn't filed if there had been another type of solution. It's really, for most people, a last-ditch resort. An unsecured loan. We hear a lot of people who they come to us and they're looking for an unsecured loan. Let's just say for debt consolidation. For example, let's say an individual has 5 different credit cards and they're paying a certain amount per month, and they're looking for a loan, potentially a low interest rate unsecured loan, in order to pay those off and have a lower payment and lower interest. Well, that sounds great. However, in reality, the way it works is that most of these loans that one can get, either through a peer-to-peer platform or another type of unsecured loan, they're going to have what are called origination fees. In other words, if you have $10,000, if the origination fee is $500 or $1,000, the debt just increased by, well, if it's $1,000, that would be 10%. So immediately the debt, boom, just increased. Secondly, for the most part, these interest rates on the loans are going to be relatively higher. Because when you're thinking about it, well, they're lending, they have no collateral. In other words, they're lending you money and they're hoping you're going to pay back, but they don't really have a house or any property or anything that as security for it. So in order to protect the risk of certain people who don't pay back those loans, they need to be a nice high interest rate. The final issue is that if right now you're having any challenge paying the minimum payments or paying back the accounts, okay, and you have maybe 5 accounts, 5 smaller balance accounts. If one then shifts and one now has this one big massive loan, if there were any type of issue in terms of making the payments, to resolve that type of large debt requires a lot more money immediately. It's not as flexible and easy as 5 accounts that you have a payment history going back years and years. Maybe they can look at the record and see you've already paid it back 5 times, versus an account you just took out maybe a month or 2 or 3 before that literally looks like you just got a big loan, like you just got a big amount of cash, and now you're deciding for whatever reason you're not making payments, you're not able to take care of it. And that could result in whatever the lender is being a lot more aggressive. Also, what some people do is they turn to, let's say, their local credit union or certain type of lenders that, unbeknownst to them, is actually securing the loan against other things they have. Maybe they have a house. Your house is something you want to protect. But sometimes when they get this unsecured loan in the small print, it's securing against the house or against their car. And we see some people like that, and they come to us and they say, well, they're starting to go delinquent, and then they started getting calls about potential actions against their house because the house payment was being applied to their unsecured loan. So while the concept of getting an unsecured debt consolidation loan, it sounds wonderful, the fact is that because there's really no security for it, that the lender has to make up for it somewhere, so they charge additional fees often when the loan is taken out, called origination fees, as well as it becomes more of a risk. It's the concept of, if there's issues right now paying back the accounts, let's deal with that. Let's not put a Band-Aid on it that's literally going to come off in a couple of months or who knows. The other thing is that statistics and studies show that someone who, let's say, has 5 different accounts and then they pay off with another loan, and these all go to zero. Now they have an excess credit and they continue to spend. So now they have the 5, a year or two later, they have all these 5 now with balances, plus this massive big loan that they have the payment on. And they're even in a worse situation than they were before. And that's something we definitely don't want to go there. Because when I talk about worse situation, that's more stress, more hassle, and money issues are actually one of the big reasons for health issues and relationship issues. And we want you to have a great life. We can also talk about a secured loan, and a secured loan with all of the issues I just mentioned. There's also a really big issue is that the lender, if for whatever reason you couldn't be making the payments on this loan that's secured against your house or maybe your car or some other property, they can literally go after that. Depending on states, certain states have a homestead exemption for a certain amount. There's certain things. However, generally speaking, what you've signed over, you basically said is that if you can't pay back or take care of this loan before, they couldn't do anything. There was no security. Now you're basically saying, well, I'm going to risk my house, which is, your house is something you want to treat precious. That is so important. The home, the roof over your head, and the equity or the value of it, you want to protect and guard. That's your future. You can inherit that to your children or to who you would want to. That's something very valuable. And the last thing you want to do is transfer debts that are on credit cards to basically become a secured loan and risk your house. That's not a solution. If you can pay back the cards, we can go back to the snowball method. But if you can't, then let's look at a better solution than potentially risking your house, okay, or your property. And there's a concept of consumer credit counseling, and we actually have access to this program. And it's very interesting because many years ago, probably about 15 or 16 years ago, when I first got started in the industry, many credit card companies would actually go to 0% interest rate, which was phenomenal. Because you can imagine that if you weren't paying 18 or 24 or 12% interest, how quickly that would be paid off. However, at those interest rates, that's what the issue is. They don't get paid off. A lot of what happened was that there were, quote, kickbacks or payments from the credit card companies to the nonprofit consumer credit counseling agencies. And those have dwindled. I mean, if you looked at a graph, it would go down. And they're not getting much revenue from the credit card companies anymore. In addition, so they've had to basically increase, in many cases, the monthly fee. So let's say they charge $29 or $50 a month. And the interest rates, the concessions from the credit card companies, have not gone down much. What used to be 0%, maybe 12 to 16, 12 to 18% right now. So you're still paying interest. And the credit score, no one knows the formula exactly. However, different lenders have commented to us that when they see somebody on a consumer credit counseling program, it's showing that they're paying through a third party. And to them, they look at that, some lenders look at that as equivalent to a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Other lenders interpret it differently. So ultimately, it is showing that one had some challenges. One needed to get help to pay back these accounts. So since the interest rates don't go down as much as they used to, one's paying a monthly fee for what? You're paying a monthly fee where you could automate the payments online in your bank, oftentimes for free, and they'll send out the payments at different dates. When you enroll in the Consumer Credit Counseling or Debt Management Program, you're basically going to often accumulate late fees and over the limit fees, because you can imagine right now your payments are at different times in the month. However, they're going to send out the payments once per month. So for however long it takes for the credit card companies to adjust the amount of the payment, there's going to be some late fees and overdraft fees, so that's going to increase the balance even more. Many creditors, they don't give any concessions. What's a concession? Lower your interest rate. They don't do it. In addition, that most creditors require at least a 2% payment. So let's say your debt is $20,000. You would need to make at least $400 a month payment to be on this type of program. And if your interest rates are maybe somewhere in the range of 12 to 20%, they're probably going to stay pretty similar on average. I mean, everything's a little different per creditor, but generally speaking, they go to about 12 to 18% depending on the credit card company. Then you're going to be paying, let's say, 25 to 50 bucks, maybe 100, depending on who it is, for the privilege of working with this consumer credit counseling agency. So if you do the math, if you have the additional 50 bucks a month, why don't you go back and do the snowball method, right? Because you're going to pay off the highest interest rate first. And when you're on this new program, it's not a snowball method. It's basically an equal amount being paid to each account, which is really, it's an inefficient way to pay off your debts the fastest, right? Because shouldn't you be paying the most excess amount to the one with the highest interest rate? So the only time I would say that it might be an option is, let's say you're at 28+%, and you have credit card companies that will lower your interest rate maybe in the 4% range, which are very few, very, very few, 4 to 6%. And you're in a state where the fees paid to this type of agency are like minimal or no. A few states actually regulate it where it's like a maximum of a few dollars, $5, $10. And the other thing you want to keep in mind is, just because it's a nonprofit, how a nonprofit works, they're a nonprofit, is they need to have educational type of programs, which I think is phenomenal, and we're actually working on doing a lot more of that too. However, that instead of having a profit in the company, what the owners do is they take a salary. So instead of having, let's say, a salary of maybe, X thousand dollars, they can go up $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 salaries. So ultimately, there isn't a lot of profit left. It's almost the same concept, but it sounds a lot better as being a nonprofit. And definitely there is an educational component to maintain a nonprofit status, and that is phenomenal. To give back and educate the community, which I think we should all be doing anyways. And that's part of what we're doing right here, right now with you. So the other type of option is debt settlement. And debt settlement's been around for over 15 years, and it's been proven and tested. However, debt settlement alone, and there's a lot of debt settlement companies, debt settlement alone, you've probably heard of the concept. You negotiate and agree to amount to pay back on the accounts. It's a good program. However, to ultimately get you the best possible solution on your accounts, meaning you realize that paying the minimum payment forever is not the idea. That's not the ideal. Or maybe you're starting to go delinquent, or you know something's going to go delinquent, and you want to get a solution in place. So you can have the peace of mind, you know there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and you can solve this for an agreed to amount. At the same time, you want to be protected in the process. So what we have at CuraDebt is not just a typical debt settlement program. It is debt settlement. However, it has a couple other components that you must have if you truly want to get the best possible results. The first is TCPA, FDCPA protection. If you look online and you look at things about debt settlement, one of the main issues that people have had about debt settlement is they got creditor calls. Well, if someone owes you money, you'd probably want to call them too, right? However, there's certain guidelines that the creditors have to abide by to basically say, in a respectful way, to respect your rights, your legal rights. The fact is that there's so many violations of those. In the past, And what most debt settlement programs, they don't have a lot of bite, right? They don't protect you, and then it's like going through this whole process, and you're not getting protected the way you should be, basically. So what we have is a detailed integrated as part of our more than 200-page internal procedure manual. We're integrated with another company that really focuses on this, and law firms that have a proven process to maximize the results in protecting clients. I'll give you an example. Last week, as part of this process, there was a final resolution from a client who had entered in the program on one of their accounts. The creditor was violating certain collection laws, and the account was approximately $8,000. And their rights were being violated, and as a result, the law firm was able to pursue it at no extra cost to the client. This is all included in the program. And the client received a check for over $38,000. And their debt of over $8,000, I think it was like $8,600 and something dollars, was dismissed. And that will go up on the website as well. So that person at this point is making money. I mean, they entered in, I think they had somewhere around $20,000 in debt. They could literally pay it all off and still have $10,000. Well, actually, they could the $8,000 was eliminated, so they would only have about $10,000 or $12,000 left. So they could pay off the rest of the debt and still have a lot of cash as a result of the program. Yes, it's an excellent result. It's definitely not a result I'm going to say you're going to possibly get. However, I can tell you that we have everyone trained, and we work in tandem to maximize the protection of each and every one of the clients so that they can have their rights protected to the fullest legal extent without any other fees. I mean, there's no fee for doing this. And it results in a lot of wonderful results, and it helps give everybody, the clients, peace of mind, and as well as if their rights have been violated, it gives them some extra cash, and oftentimes the debts are dismissed. And we have a lot of these on the website and many more pending. It's interesting because every day I used to actually forward emails from the law firms to everyone in the team, and I've actually stopped doing it because we see so many violations and pending lawsuits against creditors that I don't want to interrupt everyone so often, like several times a day now. It has been. So what that's saying is that we have a debt settlement program, and we're also protecting your rights to make sure that the process is as smooth as possible and you're respected by the credit card companies while we're in the process of saying to them, look, John and Sally, they've been paying you for the last, who knows, 5, 10, 20 plus years. And some situation was a challenge in their life, and for whatever reason, they're not able to pay back the full amount, but they want to do the right thing. What could you agree to in order to resolve this debt? And that's basically how it works. It's a lot more detailed, there's a lot more that goes into it, but that's the general concept so you can understand that it's an agreed to resolution as opposed to, let's say, bankruptcy saying, no, I'm going to try to walk away from it. It's doing what I believe is the right thing to do. We negotiate things all the time. For example, you might go in and you're interested in buying something, and you ask, well, could we negotiate and reach a win-win price? Or maybe you're going to arrive late, there's a lot of traffic, and you call them and you say, hey, is it okay if I arrive 15 minutes late? They say, absolutely, I'll see you then, drive safely. That's a win-win type of situation, and that's what we want. There are certain types of programs that you might have heard about out there that are called debt invalidation, which it sounds interesting, right? That you can invalidate the debts and then you don't owe it anymore even though you spent it and you actually see the items you bought in your house. Well, the concept is, it's not really very legitimate because there's only one state that actually has very clear guidelines for how to invalidate debt. Meaning if the collector doesn't provide, and it's very specific, then the debt cannot be collected on. Okay, so we have it as part of the program at no additional cost, and we don't charge anything for it. Some companies actually, they charge you for debt invalidation, knowing that only one state really has strict laws and likely all of the other creditors will validate the debts. All it takes for a collector to validate debts in most states is just a little printout saying your name and the debt amount and like a date. Well, who couldn't provide that is the question. However, in certain cases, we can use this, and actually in the state that I mentioned, phenomenal results, and in the other states, we can use it as part of maximizing your rights, because once we validate the debt, or we send out a debt validation letter, which is what it is called, the creditor or collector has to cease collection activities during that time. And if they don't, then that is a violation of your rights until they have validated the debt. So that could be a potential way that potentially we could get even better results for the scenario. However, this is provided at no additional cost. It's included in the program. One potential client actually had a question. They asked, well, they bought something for their business from ABC vendor. And they asked, well, are you going to go back to ABC vendor and validate that he had actually bought this from them? And no. The way debt validation works is that, let's say that ABC creditor sells this to John or JEF collector. What we're doing is we're asking JEF collector, only them, to prove that that this is a real debt, that they have the right to collect it. Because, I mean, the law came about basically because, let's just say someone calls you up on the phone and says, hey, you need to pay me for this debt. And you say, well, I don't have a debt. So you have certain rights to say, well, prove that this actually is a legitimate debt from the person who is collecting. But we never go back and talk with the people who actually the money was spent with, or vendors. That is not part of debt validation at all. Finally, a nuanced approach. Every situation is unique. We treat you and every single client very individually. Everyone has their own, what we call hardship or challenge they're having. So we treat it very specifically. Everyone has their own finances. Everyone has their own payment history. Everyone lives in a different place. Everyone has certain financial abilities. And we treat every client very, very individually. And the nuanced approach is the absolute best way to get the maximum and best results for yourself. So as a recap, I hope this was helpful for you to look at the different options that you have. And we've talked about you need to take action. When you get something taken care of quickly, it's much better than waiting. Unsecured debt options, you can do nothing: snowball, bankruptcy, unsecured loan, secured loan, consumer credit counseling, or debt settlement. Basically, the two things I would want to focus you on is if you can afford several $100s more or a lot more per month, use the snowball method. If you can pay back the high interest rate cards in full and write a check, do that immediately. Don't have balances on your accounts if you can pay them off in full. And then if you cannot, for whatever reason, it's okay. We have thousands and thousands and thousands, over 180,000 people we've counseled. It's okay. It's a proven program. Tons of people are getting started every single day with it. And it's acceptable. It's the same as what we negotiate, and negotiation has been part of our culture for a very, 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 very long time. It's another option to consider. So below this video, I'll have a link where you can click and you can see if you qualify. You can submit some information. It's 100% confidential. It's free. There's no obligation. And really our focus in terms of counseling is to listen, to put you in a better place. If we can maybe make you feel better, refer you, or guide you in any different way and help positively impact your life. That's what we're all about. And then if we happen to be able to help you with a program, that's phenomenal too, and we're excited to be able to potentially help you. So again, the next step would be to click below the video or on the link that you see and see if you qualify. If you have $10,000 or more of credit cards, personal loans, certain private student loans, repossessed vehicles, and you can actually, you have some funds available to make a payment, because to negotiate there actually has to be something available. I encourage you, and my promise to you is we're going to do everything possible to get the best results for you and take as best possible care of you, and to help you reach your financial goals as quickly as possible based on the funds that you have available. So thank you. I wish you a phenomenal day, lots of blessings, and I look forward to helping you soon. Thank you.